If I've just said things that brought up questions, go ahead.
You know, I want to honor, a friend of mine introduced me to you just recently. And that's why I contacted you and wanted to interview, because I wasn't aware of what you were doing. She's a determined, conscious entity, and you've been a major influence on her life. And so I asked her if she had any questions to ask you, because she's familiar with your books and everything that you've been saying. So do you mind if I just relate a few questions from her?
Oh, no, go right ahead,
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. Do we eventually evolve out of the cycle of rebirth on virtual Earth, as Robert Monroe and many spiritual traditions teach? And or can we choose not to be reborn when we die?
Okay, there was a couple of questions there. The first one, well, I'll try to make it in a logical process. The reason that we have this reincarnational cycle, which in my books I don't use words. I try to stay away from emotionally laden words, so I just call it an experience packet. So we have experience. Experience gives us opportunity to make choices. Choices help us evolve or de-evolve. So we need experience. It's a slow process growing up, so we need multiple experience packets, multiple lifetimes. So that kind of gets us into this question with the reincarnation. All right, now people have an idea that, okay, we're growing up, we're lowering our entropy. When are we done? When do we get to the end point that we don't have to do this anymore? Because everybody is zero entropy. You don't get to that end point. It's a moving target. The system itself is not perfect. The whole system's evolving. We're evolving. And if you don't keep evolving, you will start de-evolving, because entropy happens. It's like that old saying, entropy happens. It's just the way it is. So you have to keep an effort all the time. Now, you do grow up, that's true, and the quality of your consciousness gets better and better as you move along this path and become love. But it's not just about you. You start with you and your quality of consciousness. Once you get that quality up to a certain level, it becomes more about others. How can you help others grow up? You see, so it's not just, well, it's me, I'm an island alone in this thing, and I'm going to grow my quality of consciousness up to where it's really, really good. Then I'm done. Right? Do I get out of this hellhole so I don't have to go through any more of these experience packets and suffer all this pain here that we get on this planet? And no, that's your ego talking. You see? I went out. That's about you. I went out. That's a me thing. So, no, we don't. What we do is that you get, entropy is like infinity. You never get to zero entropy, just like you can never get to infinity. If you could get to infinity, it really wouldn't be infinity, because you could always add one to it, and that would be a bigger number, you see. So you can't actually get there. In math talk, that means you approach it asymptotically. That means you can get closer and closer and closer, but you never really get there. So that's the way it is with entropy reduction. Everything is evolving. Evolution is an open-ended process. It doesn't have an end. It's not like evolution takes place till you get here and then everything stops because now it's perfect. It doesn't work like that. Evolution is an open-ended system that just keeps changing based on whatever its criteria and environmental pressures are, right? So it just keeps going on. And as it changes, its environment probably changes too, but it just keeps going. And so you don't get there. So I'd say, one, no, you're not going to just, get out of the system and say, well, I'm taking a vacation now. I'm going to go sit on a cloud and play a harp. That's my idea of a vacation. That's my heaven, and that's what I want to do. No, you're engaged. You're part of the entropy reduction process, and there'll always be a need for you to help others if you've been successful in helping yourself. And that's the way it is. The system is not a closed system. It's not like there's just, 7.5 billion entities, and that's it. And we're all going to stay in this system until we all get up and evolve out of it. It's like this is the third grade, and we all graduate together. It's not like that. There are new entities coming in at the bottom all the time. Now, the other part of the question is, one, do I have to come back here? And the answer is no. There are other realities, virtual realities, in which you can evolve in. And that are sort of like this one in the sense that they are tight rule sets, so they're kind of physical-like situations. And you can go to one of those other realities if you really don't like this one, but you won't find a whole lot of difference. Now, you'll find lots of differences that are superficial. people, things might look different, might work different, but it's the same game. You're there to make choices and evolve by the quality of your choices, and you don't get any bonus or plus up just because you change to a different reality frame. You're still the same person at the same level, and you have to make choices to grow up. And mostly people who do that realize there's very little advantage in changing to a different reality frame because you're already used to this frame. You kind of know how this one works. It's like when you play a game and you play it often, you get better at it. So here you are and you're playing bridge or something and you've done it for years and years. You've played thousands of games. Now suddenly just give that up and play some other game. Well, you can do that, but for a while you're not going to be so good at it. You're going to be kind of struggling with the new rules and new ways of interacting and new feedback. So most people do stick around and come back here because it's just more comfortable and it's as good a place as any other because they're all more or less for the same point, for the same purpose. So that's one thing. Yes, you can change, but most people don't. Now, the other one was, do I have to come back? When I leave this reality, do I say, I don't want another experience packet, I'm done? Of course you can. This consciousness system works on free will. You are not forced to do anything. After a while, you're going to get very bored. You're going to feel like you're going nowhere. You're not learning anything. You're not having any interesting, challenging experiences because in that big chat room I'm talking about, it's just not a lot going on that's very compelling. So you will then say, I think I'd like to get back in the game. So yes, you may refuse, and you can continue to refuse right up to the place where you change your mind. And there's a very, very high probability you will change your mind. That once you see a bigger picture, you let go of this. You let go of all of the details here. When you die here and you become aware in a different virtual reality, which is called the transition reality, that's between experience packets, you will lose the details of this reality that you just had very much the way you lose the details of a dream. You wake up with a dream and it's fresh and every detail's right there, and then 2 minutes later it gets fuzzier and fuzzier and fuzzier, and pretty soon you can just remember kind of the outline of that dream, and a week later you don't remember the dream. It just goes away. That's the way this life will go away. So you're thinking perhaps, man, this has been tough. This has really been a challenge, and I don't want to do this again. Well, it doesn't take very long before all that disappears because that's just like your dream, and it goes away. And next thing you know, what's next? Let's get back in the game because you're not the same person then that you are when you're here in this game. You have a different perspective once you're out of this. So that's kind of the answer to all the questions. Yes, you can go to other frames. No, you don't have to go. But no, you never really get done because you always can help somebody else, and we never really get there because we're evolving, and that's open-ended. So that's all of a bunch of answers to a bunch of questions.
Cool. Well, there was questions I wanted to ask for myself as well that we didn't quite get to. Is archetypes. Are we all evolving our archetype? In other words, are you an archetype that you yourself might not have been before, but you're developing that awareness that is the basis of your being? Is that how you see it working?
Well, archetypes, as they were first defined by Carl Jung, had to do more with collective consciousness, if you will. You have archetypes that are species, and some that are cultural, and some that might even be, professional. These are kind of groupthink. It's ways we see the world based on who we hang out with, and that's kind of all consciousness is netted. So if there's a bunch of people and they all want to lynch somebody, they call that a mob, and that mob's IQ is less than the IQ of all the individuals in it because they all are angry and they're all upset, and that drags everybody down. If you're around a lot of people who are full of love and peace and caring, well, that kind of drags everybody up. But it doesn't change people. You're still the same. You still have to grow up, but that kind of pulls people up. And if you're in a culture where people think certain ways and have cultural beliefs, then there will be archetypes that represent that culture and represent those beliefs. And you can just go to anybody in that culture and they will know how this works or know the answer to that question, even though they've never been taught, because they just get that from the kind of the group mind, if you will, of all the netted beings that are a member of that culture. So that, in that sense, archetypes represent groups of people and the way those people think. And you might even have an archetype in, you know, in an industry or in a company. You know, there may be the Microsoft archetype. You know, the way people, if you go to work at Microsoft and you've been there more than 10 years, well, there's a certain kind of qualities and attitudes that you get while you're there that most everybody has. And then, you know, when you go away from that, you maybe go back to the way you were. So there's archetypes that it's a group mind kind of a thing. So that's my understanding of archetypes. Now you're thinking more of who you are, like in the bigger picture of yourself, which maybe some people would call a higher self.
Right, like you say, like some people seem to be more evolved than others, but yeah, I'm sure they didn't do it just in this lifetime. I mean, it's possible, but it could be that it's an energy that's been working on it for millennia.
Exactly, that's the idea of the multiple experience packets. Right. There's a part of your consciousness which is really the individuated unit of consciousness. That's the accumulator. That has the learning function. The part that actually is immersed in this reality, I call that a free will awareness unit, because it's here, free will, in the game, immersed 100%. So it's that collector function, takes all the growth that the experience packet has, and it accumulates that growth. So every time you have another experience packet, you have a time to raise the quality of that accumulator that is the bigger you, if you will, the higher self, the oversoul. There's lots of names that people give that. Then when you're born, again, you start another experience packet. You start at the level of that accumulated growth. You don't start at zero. This learning, growing up is a cumulative process. So yes, you have to accumulate those, and that higher self continues to grow, and that's what this person is talking about. You know, does that higher self ever accumulate enough points, if you will, that you know, there's no more levels to go up, and now they, you know, go sit on a cloud and play a harp. They do something else, or they go somewhere else. Can you get out of this racket, this place, this particular you know, virtual reality? And again, the answer is yes, but you probably don't want to, because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you have challenges and experience. And your life has been a really tough challenge. Should be. That's what you're here for. Make good decisions. You know, grow up, and it'll become more and more joyous.
Well, her next one is, while we are living, can we easily become invisible helpers who speak to others in their sleep or psychically to ease suffering and help temper world events through encouraging leaders to act in accord with love?
Yes, of course we can. Everybody is netted, and everybody can communicate with others over this net. So if you want to pass information or attitudes or feelings or understanding to someone, you can do that over the net. Now, they have to take it on and accept it and receive it, because it's your intent that opens that link for you to send, and it's their intent that opens that link to receive. So if you are trying to cram something into their mind that's good for you, like you're going to tell your boss, give me a raise, you need to give that guy a raise, you know. So you spend your time focused on your boss's mind, telling him, you know, whispering in his ear how he needs to give you a raise. He'll probably just turn you off, because he knows that is somebody trying to manipulate him, trying to get him to do something. You see, so he'll have a tendency to turn that off. And the more you overpower it, that turn off, and you force your way through, the more he is likely to do just the opposite, because it's annoying to him. It's not what he wants to do. You're not doing something that's helping him grow or become more, and you're just trying to manipulate him. On the other hand, if it's somebody who's upset, or somebody's having trouble, and you give comfort, if you give understanding, if you kind of join with them in their feelings and try to be helpful, then they get that, and they open that, and they will open it more and more, you know, as you're positive for them. So it's not a way to manipulate people, though you can manipulate people that way, but that is a short-sighted wrong way to approach it, and eventually you'll end up doing more harm than good to yourself, and probably more yourself than actually the other. But if you use that wisely, like you say, you talk to people in charge and you encourage them to do the right thing for the right reasons, not telling them what to do, but giving them the concept, the idea of that helps them make a decision. You see, if you just go and try to tell them what to think, you're annoying. If you go in and give them a concept or an idea that helps them see it a different way, well, now you're part of the solution for that person, and that person will open up to you. So yes, you can. We're all netted, and we all can communicate, and your intention is what makes data move. In this information system, you move data by your intent. That's the way the system works. You can get into these databases, the future probable and the past databases, with your intent. Your intent is the query tool. With your intent, you can query the databases. You can see things that happened in the past. You can see things that didn't happen in the past but were probable. You can get into probable realities that didn't actually happen too. So you have to have a very clear and focused intent if you query these databases. Just like Google. If you go to Google and put in love, you'll get 6 million replies, 2/3 of which you wish you didn't get. But it's the same with these databases. If you're not concise with exactly what you mean and feel, and if your intent isn't well focused and not jumping around and random, and your thoughts are coming and going, then you can select data out of these databases. You can receive data from people if you want to know how they're feeling. What's their state of mind? You can select that data, but again, they have to give it to you. It's like you make a request, they can give it to you. Or you go to the databases and make a request, make a query. So yes, you can do all those things. And it's good to do them if you do them in the right way. It's not good to do them if you are trying to manipulate a situation.
So what needs to be aligned for our intent to be focused?
Well, the first thing you probably should do if you want to make your intent focused is learn to meditate. That would be the first step, because in meditating, what you're doing is learning how to just be with your own consciousness. And most of us, when we try to meditate first time, and we're told the point here is to just get thoughts out of your mind. You want to become thoughtless, so there's no thoughts intruding on your mind. Just exist without operating, with no analysis, no judging, none of that active stuff going on. Just exist without thoughts. Most people last about 3 or 4 seconds with no thoughts, and then thoughts come in. And they'll put those thoughts away, and more thoughts come in. And if you struggle with it, even more and more will come in. And if you just have to let it go gently, and eventually you will learn to sit quietly in emptiness with no thoughts in your mind. That's step one. Because what happens is your mind is going in 10 directions at once all the time. It's got all these thoughts about this and that and the other thing, and now back to this and something else, and what if that, and what's for dinner tonight? What do I have to do? This relationship, and all this stuff is just blah, 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 blah. People call it monkey mind. It's just chatter going on all the time, and that is the antithesis of being focused. That's being unfocused. Your mental energy is scattered in 100 different directions, and by the microsecond, it's just flying all ways. Well, you're not a focused mind if that's what's going on. So first learn to meditate, because you'll learn to shut down all of that noise. And it isn't easy for most people, but you can get better at it. You may try 10 or 20 times and it never seems to work. You only go about 5 or 10 seconds before you get thoughts. But just keep at it. Eventually, instead of 5 seconds, it'll be 6 seconds, and then it'll be 10 seconds, and then it'll be 12, and then it'll be 15. And you will just get better at it as you work on it. You just have to let all that stuff go. Now, what you're doing then is that when you stop operating, you have a tendency to stop gathering input data at the same time. So you stop paying attention to your senses. You stop listening, you stop feeling, you don't notice that your arms are on the chair or that you're lying on the bed or whatever. You just kind of don't notice those things anymore. Well, that's not such a big deal. People do that all the time when they read a book. You read a really good book, you don't know where you are sitting in this chair. None of that. All of your environment just disappears. You're just in the book and what's happening, And what's going on elsewhere, even if even if somebody comes through and talks to you, you just may not hear them because you're just focused. Well, it's the same thing, except now I want you to be focused on nothing. You see, you need to be focused like that so that you're just detached from everything else. Your senses aren't giving you data. Well, maybe they are, but you're not operating on them. You're not analyzing, judging, they're not triggering any thoughts. They're just there. And so now you get to be eventually you'll learn to get in a place I call point consciousness, where you are nothing but a point of consciousness floating in the void. You're not attached to any sense data. Well, once the sense data goes, there's nothing there, right? There's no sight, there's no sound, there's no touch, there's no smell, there's no feel, there's nothing. And you are just a point of awareness. You're at the Descartes' I am. And that's all there is in your reality is I am. You're a point of awareness in the void. If you can learn to hold that for as long as you can, let's say first you can probably hold it for seconds, but eventually get up to where you can hold that for half an hour, say, and then maybe an hour, and then maybe 2 hours. You can just hold that state as long as you like. You can just sit there and be comfortable. Nice thing about it is that even though your body may actually be uncomfortable, you don't notice because you're not tuned into your body. So you just sit there, and then after you come back, you go, oh man, I can hardly stand up or something. But while you're there, you don't notice any of that. So it's a nice place, and people find it so restful and so pleasant that they often just like to go there and hang out, and they come back kind of charged. It's like taking a vacation, because all the thoughts are just gone for a while. So it's a very nice place all in itself. And for a lot of schools of meditation, that's the end point. That's nirvana. You get to the point of just drifting in point consciousness. In my way of thinking, that's the beginning. You get there to start. Now, once you have that under control, your intent can do anything you want. Your intent can travel. Your intent can meet other people. Your intent can remote view. Your intent can heal. You can do all sorts of things because now you have a focused, clear mind. And now you just have your awareness focus that with an intention. And there you go. So that's the doorway to these things. So start with meditation. That's kind of the key element to reduce the noise. So when I talk about a well-focused mind, I mean a mind that has very low noise level, has a high signal-to-noise ratio. So that's kind of the way it starts. Now you can go on from there. Eventually you can learn to do this very quickly. Not to be habituated to rituals. Well, I can only meditate sitting in this chair, at this time. It has to be dark. It has to be quiet. It has to be this and that. I have to have incense burning. I have to have my legs crossed, and all this ritual that doesn't really matter much unless you need it because you believe you need it. Then it does matter. But eventually, you can get to where you can get into that meditation state in a tenth of a second, and you can be in multiple realities at one time, and basically you just learn to live in a bigger and bigger reality. This physical universe becomes just part of the reality that you live in daily. And the meditation state isn't something you do, it's now something you are. You're kind of in that state, but operable elsewhere all at the same time. You don't actually leave it. You kind of stay there, but aware. Your awareness can go out and do this, and your awareness can go out and do that, but the center of you is in that calm state, all the time. So, but that's after, 10, 20 years, this is not something that most people get too quickly, but the meditation is a good way to start. So did that answer that question?
Yeah. So, but just to quickly, what aspect of awareness then intends? It's not a thought that you would use. It's something else, isn't it?
No, it is a thought. It's a thought. It's your intellect. Back to that intellect in the service of love, intellect in, it's just you without the fear, without the ego. And as much as you still have that fear and ego attached to that intent, your intent is still high entropy. You see? So that's another part of your focus. Now you can focus by getting rid of the noise, but then the clarity of your intent requires you to get rid of the ego and get rid of the fear. So that's like step 2. So focus is 1, then clarity is 2. So once you get rid of that fear and ego, then it is your intent, your awareness that can focus on what it is you want to do, go where you want to go. and it is that same intellect, but that's a different intellect. That's an intellect that is fully integrated at the being level. So it's not like the intellect's up here and the being level's down there, and there's, there's no communication between them. One is the subconscious and the other is the conscious. It's all one thing. You're a whole being then, and your intellect just gives voice to the whole of you. And it's not playing games. It's not an image. It's not manipulating. It's not doing any of that stuff, because all the fear and stuff's gone. So step one is be able to focus, get rid of the noise. Step two is clarity in your intent, which you get rid of the fear and the ego. Now you have a low noise, very clear intent, and that has power. That can change things. That has effects. If you have a scattered, you're not focused, your energy's scattered all over, and if your intent is a high entropy, a low quality intent, then it doesn't do much.
Okay. Her next question is, in a worst case scenario where the Earth might be completely annihilated, where and how would we be reborn?
Well, remember, this is a digital information system. Digital information systems are very robust. That's why they kind of took over the computing world. We had analog computers first, and they were very fast, and they were pretty simple, but they weren't robust. They could only do very specific things. They weren't really too adjustable. You couldn't make them do whatever you wanted. They were designed just to do a specific thing. Well, with digital technology, if we had a world that self-destructed, the larger conscious system could just back up to a point, start over, checkpoint, restart the program. Or it could start at some different branch. It could introduce a few new variables, modify things a little bit, and start it up again. So it's not the catastrophe that it seems. You see, the larger consciousness system is creating this reality, and we blow it up. Well, it still has a need for virtual reality for consciousness to play in, and it can reconstitute it any way it wants. If that wasn't a very productive virtual reality, it kept blowing itself up, and it didn't seem to ever grow up. Then it may just not. It may go to something else, tweak the design a little bit, and then the consciousness would pick avatars in some other virtual reality. So it has lots of choices. As a digital system, it could just go back in our history to a certain point where that watershed choice was made by us collectively that head us off to this bad end, that maybe we could make it a little different. It might just take us, 10 years before we get to that watershed, and maybe add some nudging here and there, to help us avoid that, or maybe not. We may just, let's see what happens next time. It's a probable thing. It wouldn't necessarily happen exactly the same way all the time. Maybe it was a near thing. Those tipping points sometimes could go this way or that way, and who knows? It could do almost anything. But it's not the catastrophe that you think of. We, the consciousness, are not affected by that. You see, if we are playing World of Warcraft and the World of Warcraft server blows up, it's not a real big deal to us, other than we just can't play that game anymore for a while until they fix it, or buy a new server, or host it on some other server. You see, it's the same way. So it's not that awful a thing. It just means that we were not successful in our evolution. We failed. We failed to use the evolution trainer very well. Well, then we start over. We, the consciousness, aren't affected terribly by it, other than maybe an inconvenience. We were maybe on a roll, and it suddenly ended, and boy, we were doing really good that time. So maybe it's an annoyance to us, but it's not a really big deal in the big picture.
Can we take extraordinary inner measures to preserve the earth and restore nature?
Sure. It's what I talked about before. Fix yourself, grow yourself, become love, and care. If you care about nature and you care about other things. And when I'm talking about consciousness, and I tend to talk about people because most of our audience are people, so we talk about people because that's what they're interested in. But when I say consciousness, individual units of consciousness, I mean all consciousness. And lots of things are conscious. Dogs and cats and horses and bumblebees, and lots of things fall into the consciousness. It's just, and they are doing the same thing we're doing. They have choices to make. And they evolve or de-evolve based on the value of those choices. So it's the same kind of thing. They're just doing it at a much smaller capacity, at a much smaller decision space. They only have a little bit of decisions they can make. We have a lot of decisions that we can make. So that's the difference. They have just a little effect they can have on the world. We have a real big effect we can have on the world. So it's a different level that the game's being played, but it's the same game. So yes, all consciousness, all the critters and things that are conscious, they're all part of the same thing, and we should treat them as our brethren consciousness, and be helpful to them as well. And yes, we can change it, but mostly by changing ourselves, by putting that energy. This lady says, how about we try to help leaders see bigger pictures so that they make better decisions? Good. Do that. You get enough people doing that, and it'll make a difference. Yes, we can affect the probable future with our intent. And the more we have, the better, because there's another bunch of people that are trying to get that leader to do the opposite thing. You see, so the more of us that are trying to help him see a bigger picture, to help him choose peace rather than war, well, we need to be stronger and have more people whispering in the ear than on the other side of that. But it does help, and we can do that with our minds. But we also do it here in our interactions and how we talk to other people and the way we act. If what we want to do is kill those jerks that are, that we don't like, then we're just feeding the problem. So we can make a difference.
Can intent alone transform things that are not good for us, like sugar, toxins, etc., into harmless substances within and around us, even change our cellular condition for rapid or instant healing?
Well, yes, to some extent. And we can modify our physical system based on our intent modifying probable future. That's how we heal. That's why placebo effect works. But there's limitations to that. You're not going to chug-a-lug a gallon of gasoline and likely say, no effects. That'll make me feel good today, because you're going to somehow transmute all that poison. Now, if you were, capable of doing that, that would mean you would have a really good focus and a very clear intent, and probably never drink gasoline, because if you had a clear focus, if you had a clear intent and a good focus, you wouldn't drink gasoline, because there'd be no point in it, you see. So for the most people, yes, they can affect it, but marginally, in the margins, because most people aren't that clear and aren't that focused. So yes, you can, and depending on how much clarity and focus you have, you'd have more. But when we nudge probability, that doesn't mean we always get the answer we want. I think I said this earlier. You may do a Herculean job of modifying probability to make it 1 in a million all the way up to 1 in 100. Wow, that was a lot of clarity and a lot of focus. But still, it's 1 in 100, and it's probably not going to happen. You see, so yes, we get to nudge it, but that doesn't mean that you can do anything you want anytime. The more power you have, the more you can do, but there are still limitations.
Next subject is alchemy and sex. Could you address the mastery of Kundalini, also called alchemy, and the roles of sex, celibacy, twin souls, in relation to our evolution? Many religions and schools say that we cannot truly evolve without eventually facing the alchemical process in a particular lifetime. Is that true?
Kind of yes and no. You gave me a whole varied list of things there. Many of those are just cultural definitions, like twin flames and all that sort of thing. We tend to make stuff like that up because it's a metaphor. We use those things as metaphors because they help us understand certain functions and experiences, but they're mostly just made up metaphors and tools. There's nothing really fundamental about those kinds of things. Now, Kundalini is a little different. That's a that has to do with, well, I guess they put it in computer terms. That has to do with getting like a regrade on your elf. How you play in World of Warcraft and they have these upgrade packets that you can buy, and when you buy that, now your elf can do different things. He gets an upgrade and all the things he does because you've gotten a new upgrade. Well, the Kundalini kind of works like that. You get to a point where the things that you do and the things you're capable of and what you do in your daily life tends to need a little different avatar to support it. And the Kundalini is a process where that avatar changes a bit. You change the nature of what the rule set says that avatar does and doesn't do, and whatever. You just change it a little bit. It's kind of an upgrade to the system. So yeah, that can happen. No, it isn't absolutely necessary. It doesn't have to happen to everybody in any particular lifetime, but most people, as they evolve, will get to a point where their consciousness is kind of outstripped the avatar that they're working with, and they need to upgrade it a little bit, and that's what happens. I'd say trying to push that process ahead of its time, and there are ways that you can do that with your intent. Again, intent modifies future probability, and you can push on it, and you can make it more likely that that'll happen, but there's never a big advantage in getting a cart out in front of a horse. Typically, when you do that, the horse just has a real hard time making the cart go, because pushing the cart with its nose just doesn't work as well as pulling it, in a harness. So it's better to just let that happen. It will happen when you are ready. And if you push it before you're ready, is not a good thing. You just get the cart in front of the horse, and it just doesn't work well. And you end up with confusion and other kinds of problems, and it's just not so good. So I'd say don't worry about it. When you're ready and that's something you need, it'll happen. Like they say, when a student's ready, the teacher will come. And that's right. Things will come to you as you are ready to use them. That's why some people have synchronicity happening all the time. They walk into a bookstore and like a book jumps off the shelf into their hands and just grabs their attention, and they pull it out, and wow, that was something they really needed to read. Synchronicity. Things would happen like that. Other people have never had a synchronicity happen to them at all, ever. Why is that? It's because the people that it happens to are ready for them. They can use them. They can go, wow, that book just kind of jumped out there. I'm going to look and see what that's about. That's maybe something going to be useful for me. And others just say, that's weird. Push the thing back and not want to deal with it because it's too weird. So if you're ready, things will happen. You have opportunities. New challenges will come up that you're ready for. If you're not ready, no sense pushing challenges in somebody's face is not ready to deal with them. That just makes it worse. It makes them regress rather than progress. So Kundalini is not something to go try to make happen. It's something that'll come to you when you're ready for it. And never fear, when you are ready, the system will support you. And if you're saying, I'm ready, come on, system, what's the matter? It's because you're not really ready. You just think you are. So that's the way it is with most of us. We think we're ready right from the beginning, but it's always like that growing up, right? Every 10-year-old knows he's ready to drive a car if you just let him. They're all ready to do whatever, if you just let them, but they're not really.
So next one is, since magicians can inflict negative energetic control and damage on others, is there a means to avoid being a victim of it and protect others from it if we are not as strong in our beliefs and intent as the people who wield it?
Well, in general, the first question was yes, but then when we got to the last part that said, can we do this if we are not as strong as the person that's doing it to us, then I'd say that's a problem. If somebody is let's say, making you ill, right? If you can heal somebody with your mind, you can make somebody ill with your mind. We're not, it's not morally based energy. It's just energy, or, it's an ability that somebody has. It's intent based, and if their intent is bad, the best thing you can say is that they're limited. That bad intent can only get but so strong and so focused because it's self-destructive itself. So it won't get but so bad, but that doesn't mean it still isn't a lot more powerful than you are. And if that's the case, then I suppose keeping a low profile would be a good idea. Don't attract that kind of attention. And build yourself up. Grow your own quality. As you get rid of the fear, that person will have less and less handle on you to manipulate you with. The way that you are manipulated by others is through your fear. The more fear you have, the easier you are to manipulate. you're connected to that person and that energy and that thing that's happening to you with your fear. That's just like a data path that's wide open because your fear is connected to that. So when you don't have fear, if you can just be without that fear, then you basically shut off their ability to manipulate you if there's no fear. So in a way, we see you go over into coastal Africa and you'll see that there are people that do this kind of thing for a living. I will make you ill if you don't send me money, sort of same sort of game Al Capone played, right? If you don't pay me protection money, right, I'll burn your shop down. It's a similar kind of thing. And the people who are aware that that exists and that it's real and that they can make you sick and they're afraid and they fear, they are easy targets, you see. And the people who say nonsense and they have no fear just because they're ignorant and they don't know that it's possible, they're much harder to deal with because they don't connect to it with their fear. So in a way, your ignorance actually gives you some immunity, you see. Now, if you know about it because you've grown up and you understand how the world works from your own experience, not because you read it in a book, and you've gotten rid of your fear and you've gotten rid of your ego, they're not going to touch you. And you can grow much more powerful on the positive side than can the negative side. And yes, you can go help people then, but you're not going to help people as much if you are low power, high entropy person. So yes, you can help others that are in that kind of a jam. You can help yourself if you're in that jam, but only if you've got enough focus and enough clarity that your help is strong. Now, what if you don't? Well, still help them because your help will be weak, but weak help is better than no help at all. And if you get 100 weak people with weak help, it'll amount to something pretty significant because all the help is additive. You have 100 people with intents, that makes a pretty powerful intent if they're all intending something very similar, you see. So you as a weakling don't have a lot of personal effect, but you as a group of weaklings might have a much bigger effect. But the biggest thing you can do to protect yourself is get rid of your fear. As long as you're fearful, fear is just a big handle by which you can be manipulated. I mean, that's true everywhere. What do religions do? What do politicians do? What do advertisers do? All of them try to manipulate them to believe and think and do and spend in a way they want you to do by fear. Fear's the handle. So you find somebody that has a fear, you can manipulate them using that fear as a handle. You find somebody that is fearless, it's basically impossible to manipulate them because they come to their own decisions in their own way, and you can't push them around by their fear. So that's, number one, get rid of your fear.
Well,
grow up.
That leads to our next question, which is, what is a systematic method to disempower and disperse negative mental and emotional states that we could teach people to use? Well, I won't go into that, teach people to use. You have advised us to stay out of fear and negativity, which also helps life lighten up around us, but emotions are often powerful beyond management by thoughts or shifts of perspective alone.
Right, and that's what we talked about. That's that unseen, unconscious place that we have. That's because of our fear. If we can get rid of our fear, then we don't have those emotions that jump out of the dark somewhere deep in ourselves that we're not aware of and cause us to get angry or get upset or whatever. That's our fear. So what you do about those is work on the fear, and until you get rid of the fear, you're stuck with them. And we already talked about how do you get rid of the fear. Well, you start with your ego and you work back, and it takes courage, and it's a long process, but that's the only way to go about it. There's no now you can use tools. You talk about your witch doctor may chant something and throw a little pixie dust on you or whatever, and if that then helps focus your intent on being invulnerable, well, then it'll work. It's not that the dance and the chant and the pixie dust were magic. It's that ritual helped you focus your intent on being invulnerable, you see. So you can use tools But the tools are just tools. The tools aren't fundamental. They're just focusing aids.
Right. Your next one is many so-called New Agers are awaiting and preparing for mass ascension. Are they misguided and looking for an easy way out of our circumstance, or should we all be doing that?
Well, the basic fundamental answer to that is there is no free lunch. You know, in personal growth and becoming love, you don't get $200 just because you pass, go. You have to grow up. And it's not like our schools where if you're old enough, you get out of third grade and go into fourth grade. Here, if you haven't passed third grade because you haven't grown up enough, you're just in third grade until you do. So, no, there's no free lunch. And just because this is the age of, Aquarius or something, or it's the 2012 and, that some mystical thing's going to happen and everybody's going to get a big plus up in their quality of their consciousness doesn't compute. That's wishful thinking, but it isn't like that. We're not all pawns in a game that can be manipulated like that. We're individuals with free will, and we have to earn every bit of what we get. It has to be ours. You don't grow up and become love just because you hang out with the guru or just because a certain date's gone by or somebody waves pixie dust, over your head. It's not going to happen. You have to earn it. So, no. If you're just sitting around waiting for somebody to enlighten you, rather magically, you're wasting your time. That's not going to happen. You need to get in gear and start dealing with your fear.
You are a pleasure to talk with, and I'm so happy to be able to help spread your knowledge, your information out there. If after I go through all this, because you went through a lot of information here, if I come up with some more ways of drawing more bits of knowledge out of you, can I contact you again for another interview? I would love to, like I say, you're the kind of person I would love to help get the message out there. Okay,
sure. If the time we spend ends up helping people, and the more people, the better. That's what I'm about.
That's what I'm about too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah. So long. We'll do it again.
Okay. Thank you.